Courage is the art of being the only one who knows you're scared to death. And some decisions in life need a lot of courage. Today I have with me Nisha Balwani. So we all grow up, at least all the girls grow up, and think of, we're gonna get married, we're gonna have a wonderful proposal, the guy's gonna serenade us, and we're gonna have that big fat wedding. And Nisha had that, but then she had to break it off. And she had to tell her parents, and she had to tell the friends, and she had to tell the society, and she had to make that decision. That's called courage. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Nisha Balwani.
Thank you so much, Alka.
Nisha,
I'm
welcome.
So humbled to be on the show.
Oh, I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to Soul Talks with Alka. And thank you for agreeing to do this, because when I asked you, a lot of the girls, right, will not want to share something so personal. Right? I remember seeing your proposal. I remember seeing the serenading, the photographer, and saying, oh my God, this is beautiful.
Yep.
She must be so excited. And then it wasn't so exciting. Yep. So tell me what happened.
I know, my gosh, what a story. I think it goes to show that what you see on the outside, we're all looking at each other's highlight reels.
Yes.
And we're not sure what's happening on the inside. And I think the issue is when you start looking at your highlight reel and not listening to yourself on the inside.
Oh my.
So it was an interesting story, exactly what you said. I grew up in New Jersey, 2 loving parents, a great upbringing. And again, I didn't, always dream of my wedding, but there's a way society kind of tells you what to do without you really realizing it.
Of course, the chick flicks, the Bollywood
Totally.
movies. Yeah, it's everything.
And when you're kind of given a really nurturing upbringing, you're not expecting anything to go wrong. So I was in a great relationship. Everything was fine. I was engaged at 25, which I personally felt was a little bit young, but again, like the Bollywood, I was like, this is for love. You do everything for love,
yes.
And over the course of the engagement, I started not feeling like myself. And it was like what you said, it was a perfect proposal. Like everything was a resounding yes. But over the year of wedding planning, I felt like I was losing a little bit of myself and I couldn't figure out why. And I think what really, really changed it for me was one day when my mom came to me and she was like, you're like the most type A person I know and you're not planning your wedding. And now I know something's wrong. She's like, there's no checklist, there's no to-do list, there's no venue, you're not bossing us around. Like,
You're not a bridezilla.
You're not being bridezilla. Like, are you okay? And I think she made me stop and think. And of course I was like, Mom, stop it. I'm doing it. It's fine. But it really, really made me think, like, hold on. Everything else in life, I've seen it. I've wanted it. I've gone after it. It's like, why am I not planning my own wedding? And then I really, really started to feel it. Like I didn't want to get out of bed. And I was like, what's wrong with you, Nisha? Why are you so tired all the time? Like another thing, your physical being, it really tells you.
Your body manifests what you're thinking.
It does. And then still I was like, nope, this wedding is right. And my ex-fiance, his family, they were more traditional than mine. So both 2 Indian families, which we know can also be a problem.
Yes, of course.
And I think they were just wanted me to be more traditional than I actually was. And so I started trying to be someone who I wasn't.
Yes.
And seeing my life play out in the future, just not in the way that I had always imagined it and not in the way of all the sacrifice that my own parents had given for me. Mm-hmm. So I started looking at it like, am I actually just getting the wedding? Am I getting the dream proposal? Or am I looking at the next, 40, 60 years of my life? What do those look like?
Yeah.
And I think that's where my immaturity at 25 really awoke in me, where I was like, wow, I was living this beautiful life, great guy, but I think I was doing it for the outside world because now my body, my mind, everything is telling me this is wrong.
But Nisha, you're saying immature. I am thinking you're not immature, because if you can realize that, or if you can even talk to yourself and have that dialogue, I wish I had that dialogue
Yeah.
before my wedding, right? And said, stop. You can't. It's like, what are my parents going to think?
my gosh, yeah.
Your dad was sick, right?
Yeah.
What is my dad's going to, what is going to happen to his health? What's going to happen to my mom? What's going to happen to the society? What is everybody's going to say to them? Like, there's so much going on in your head.
Totally. And I think it's such a big message here, and I don't know how. So my dad was diagnosed with cancer around the same time I was engaged. It was like all these things going on that took me from like almost like a young, just living life to, wow, there's like moments, pivotal moments in your life. So I really still reflect on this, and I don't know if my dad's sickness like almost accelerated something inside of me to be like, whoa, like that's life. Like you get old, you know, things happen, and like who do you want in your corner at that time?
Right.
But I think the biggest message is like, I could never have done it alone. Like my mom should be sitting here telling the story because she noticed in me that something was changing. And I'm such a headstrong person that I think that I would have been like, no, we're going to fight through it and like one step at a time. But my mom was the one who really sat me down and was like, you're such a private person, which is funny that I'm doing
Yeah.
But like,
The private person who's now going to be sharing to the world what her story is. Because she's a very, very private person.
Exactly. She was like, I don't think you're going to talk to us, and I don't know what's wrong. And she's like, I don't think you're going to talk to your friends. Like, she was like, I'm making an appointment for you to talk to someone and for you to like see an outside therapist. I have a recommendation. And
So your parents, see, this is what I mean. Your parents were amazing.
They were amazing. Like, I completely credit the like maturity that from like the angle that you saw it.
Yeah.
Like, this is what was happening to me. Like, I was like falling into some sort of weird depression that seemingly had no cause because everyone's like, we're looking at any venue you want, any wedding place you want.
You have everything you need. What are you upset about?
Yeah, like dad's sick, but we're fighting through that. Like, what's wrong? Yeah. So she drove me to my first therapy. I wouldn't even get in the car. I was like, I don't know why we're doing this. Like, you know, typical.
I don't need this, Mom.
I don't need this. But I think a part of me was like, I do. And I was curious almost to see like a third part. I don't even know like why. You should make your own decisions. But just even knowing that my mom was in my court, being like, I want to help you.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really big message to everyone out there that I know it's a little bit taboo and not a little bit, it's very taboo.
It's very taboo.
In our society, but being a mom isn't just being there when like, you know, the good things are there, right? It's like noticing there's a change in your daughter. Like I keep going back to that moment where she just was like, this is so not you.
Yeah.
And so I went to the therapy appointment and within 30 minutes, and like the therapist doesn't tell you, but you say it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you vocalize it to yourself.
Oh my God. Like, and from that day, it was just, I knew it. And then I lived that way for a little bit longer, being like, oh my God, I like know this is wrong.
Yeah.
But once I knew it was wrong, I was like, now I just need to take corrective measures or whatever I had to do. But
well, when you told your dad, so your mom is the one who's taking you to the doctor's appointment, right?
Yes.
So she's more, okay, my daughter, your dad is, my baby's getting married, I'm sick, I'm going to get to see her wedding.
Totally.
I want all of this for her.
Totally.
What is he saying to you?
And so like everything you just said was what was playing in my head. I remember word for word because the first thing, like when you go see a therapist, they tell you to keep a journal.
Right.
And it was the best thing I ever did because I can read those journal entries now.
Yes.
And some of it, I'm like, wow, that's so stupid that I thought that mattered. And some of it, I'm like, wow, that's really powerful. So I kept writing about my parents' friends. I was so worried about their like social circle. And I was worried about my own.
But isn't that the truth? We all worry about society when society means nothing.
Nothing. I read those journals now and I'm like, could you imagine I would have made a life decision because of like my parents' friends, but it mattered to me. And also about my dad, I'm like, does my dad really want to see a wedding? So this is another pivotal moment. Now it's been like a couple weeks and I'm like, I know I want to call it off. Like, and like my parents kind of know. I think my mom told my dad. And I'm like literally at home, won't leave the bed, like almost probably depressed. And my dad came to me and was like, he sat on my bed and I literally will never forget this. He was like, Nish, it's whatever you want to do. He's like, when you close your eyes, you have to think like, what do you want to do? And he was like, you want to get, oh, and then I had my other issue, which was like, if I don't want to go through the wedding, that's its own host. But what if I did? Now do my parents hate this guy? Because they're, you know?
Yeah.
So my dad, it's almost like he read my mind. He's like, you want to get married? We still love him. We'll welcome him into the family. You don't want to get married? Forget everyone else. Like, close your eyes. It's your life. And once my dad said that, I was like, wow, like, that's a true parent.
Yeah. And you know what? A lot of times kids won't tell their parents, thinking, what are the parents going to think?
Right.
Because it's a story in our own head.
Yeah.
Right? And the parents just want the happiness for the child.
That was exactly it.
And we're just like, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? What is going to happen? And parents are like, what are you talking about? We just want you to be happy.
Oh my God. I was like, oh, I have, oh my God. I was like, I went like wedding shopping, and get this, we spent 2 weeks in India. We did the whole thing. I never found a wedding dress in 2 weeks. But I found like a million other dresses. So like my mom was like, what the hell?
Right?
Like,
because in your heart wasn't there.
And I look back and all the signs were there. And I think really what I learned from this is it's all about the support system you have. Yes. The friends that I had, nobody even, everything you think in your head, what are people going to think? If someone thinks something about you after something like that, like let them go. And I did. There were a couple of friends I lost in the process because I realized like just life value is measured so differently.
Yeah, these moments teach you. They make you a person. I'm sure they made you grow up.
Oh, totally.
Like this.
Yeah.
And but you bounced, right? That must have been such a burden off your head.
Yeah.
And you know, I say this because, and I reached out to you because I wish I had done that, right? 3 days before my wedding, I was told, call it off.
Yeah.
You're miserable. And I said, but I can't. What will society think? And of course, one day I'm going to share my story also. But there's so much courage that this takes.
Yeah.
Right? To go through it. I'm like so amazed. What is one thing that you could tell all the girls who are in that decision where it's more than just, you know, a little bit the wedding jitters. Everybody has them during this stage.
Yes.
And those are normal. So this is not normal jitters we're talking about.
Right.
These are more than normal jitters.
Yes. So that's funny that you say that because the story, I feel like this is just about my family, but I also confided in my brother. I have a brother who's a couple years older, as you know, and he had recently been married, and, you know, the four of us and my ex-fiance, we were like best friends, inseparable. So I was like, oh God, like this is going to ruin my like relationships, right? So one day I remember my brother's like, we're in his apartment, just me and him. And I'm like, you know, I'm really nervous about the wedding. I'm having some doubts. And he was like, Nish, everyone has doubts. And he like starts telling me about these like doubts that he had before he got married. And then he was like, what are the kinds of doubts that you're having? And I stated a couple, and he literally stopped what he was doing. And he was like, yeah, no, those sound like real problems.
Those are serious.
He was like, those are not jitters. Those are, so the message is like to confide in people and really have strong people around you, but this is all intentional, right? Like that, I was given this family, so I was lucky. But now I've just surrounded myself with people who, when I tell them, and I opened up, so when I tell people a problem, I like want to get some feedback.
Right.
And the message is your body and your mind will tell you if you quiet everything down. Nowadays, I purely make decisions based on my gut. And I talked to a lot of people after I called the engagement off, and I said, you don't have to have a reason to do the things that you do. So one of the things that really, really bothered me when I was calling my engagement off was that I didn't feel like I had a good enough reason. And my therapist immediately was like, that's like, I'm going to nip that in the butt. Like, that's wrong. But it's interesting that I felt that way, that I was like, great guy, like, you know, I could figure out all the family issues, whatever. I needed like logic, and our lives are not built off it's intuition and gut. And the second someone told me to listen to it, it was like resounding, like someone hit a gong in my ears. And when you talk about courage, I didn't feel that way in the moment because I felt there was no other path. I was like, I can't put one foot in front of another.
But you know, you have no idea that that's courage.
Yeah.
So many of us walk the beaten path, right? Because we can't walk the other path. And although you're still saying it's not courage, I'm still saying that is so much courage. Because there's so many people who walk down and say, I don't want to do this.
And my heart just like goes out for them, because I know that moment and what that feels like. And it feels like you're not sure what the other path holds.
Yeah.
But that other path could be so much better.
Yeah.
There were so many things I wanted to accomplish. Like, I wanted to get my MBA, wanted to start a company, like all these things I wrote down that I thought I couldn't do if I got married, because then the next thing I knew I was going to have kids and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was able to do all of that.
But when you, we're going to get to, of course, all the amazing things that you've done after. But when you were telling your family friends and that engagement was called off, right? And you're making those calls, what were the reactions you were getting? Because that's part of the scare, right? That no one wants to face the society.
Yeah.
No one wants to tell the people that, listen, I have an amazing family and I can pick any venue that I want. And I was choosing the Ritz-Carlton, but you know what? I decided to call it off.
Yep.
Especially when Facebook shows
totally
that
like
wonderful proposal.
Everything.
And there's an amazing quote that says, may your life be as wonderful as it is on Facebook. Because we all put our best moments. Even when you put a picture up on Facebook, right? People will say, what a lovely photo. And I'm like, but I'm not going to put a bad photo of myself. Like, I'm not going to do that. Of course I'm going to put a nice photo of myself,
so
right?
dangerous.
But that's Facebook.
Yeah.
And everybody measures their lives according to Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
It's not reality.
It's not at all. And I think so one of the key things I think when you're making a decision like this, I kept telling, like in therapy, I kept saying, like, what about everyone I'm going to have to tell? This seems like a big thing to do. Like, I don't know. And she was like, make a list right now in front of me of everyone that matters in your life that you would call when you leave this place to tell them. If she was like, if you were going to do this. And to this day, I have that list on my desk, and it's like 8 people, right? Like, including my parents and my brother.
Out of the 300 people that you would come to.
300, and the others that probably look at my Facebook, look at my Instagram, whatever, 8 people. And till this day, I only focus on those 8 people. Because when I called them and told them, they came over, they sent flowers, they said, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so, I mean, most people were super shocked because, again, they're looking at the Facebook.
Yeah.
And they're looking at, like, the highlight reel that I've chosen to put out there.
Yeah.
But nobody can, like, be inside you, you know, like, and really tell you what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And once I told those 8 people, I said, it just doesn't feel right. No questions asked.
Those are your anchors.
Those are your anchors. And honestly, for the past 5 years, I have only focused on those people. And it's been amazing. So I tell everyone to do that. Write down your people and then be there for them when they don't even know they need you. Wow. Because that's what it was for me.
That is, what an amazing point. Yeah. That if you focus your life around those main people instead of worrying about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
What an important decision that is.
Yeah.
That
was great. I owe it to, like, you know.
You owe it to those 8 people.
Yeah.
To become now, Nisha has then called off the engagement, done that part, and moved forward.
There's a little brief part there, though, that I feel like needs to be said, which is, it was really hard for me to forgive myself. It felt, everyone was like, I'm so proud of you and it's so courageous. And now I feel that way. But in the moment, I still needed to stay in therapy for a long time because I just could not understand why I couldn't have figured it out earlier before I hurt so many people along the way. And I still sometimes need to forgive myself. And so there is a period after you make a decision that from the outside seems really courageous that I think we all, then you have an inner battle.
Yes,
you know?
We all have to fight that inner battle.
Yes.
And sometimes seeing a therapist makes you fight it sooner.
Yeah.
And if you don't see someone like that, it's a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But it's why did I suffer so long? And why did I put the other people, the 8 anchors,
right? Why
did I put them through what I did? I could have done it sooner.
Right. And then you kind of move on. And then you're like,
So what was it? Now that when you feel that way, how you're not seeing a therapist anymore, right?
No.
So what do you do now to forgive yourself?
Yeah.
Because that, I'm sure it's like a scab, right?
It is.
It is when you talk about it, it still hurts. If you go back into that moment,
Yeah.
you never kind of get over it.
You never do. I think you just grow up a little bit and you realize that it really is a journey. And as much as if I could go back, I wouldn't have wanted to like hurt him, hurt his family. I do feel like that was part of my story, and I completely changed. Like I completely grew up in that moment and realized that like so many life lessons came out of it. So like live super intentionally, right? So everything you do it with extreme intention. And I think that's how I was able to pick myself back up. It was like, okay, well, not that life has given me a second chance, but almost like I kept having this nagging feeling that, you know, my parents had, and like many first generation Indian Americans, like your parents have, like they hold the weight of the burden of coming here and building a life with nothing. You know, we all hear the story about like uphill to school both ways. That's like my dad's favorite story. And I kept,
dad exaggerates a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, it's uphill both ways to school. And I'm like, yes, okay. He's like, your mom drops you, you know. But I feel like I kept having this moment where I was like, if I went through with the wedding and was unhappy, is that doing a complete disservice to all my parents' sacrifice?
Yes.
And I was like, yes. And so then it became my mission to like do well by the sacrifice they made. And I actually, sorry for my parents, but do not think that that's doing what they say. Yeah. I think that's doing what your heart says.
Yes. And what your body
accepts. What your body accepts. So nowadays, when I'm feeling like I'm being hard on myself, whatever, like, how do you forgive yourself? Like, I just like listen to my, like making a decision. I'm like, did that feel right? I meet somebody. I'm like, did that feel right? Like, did something feel wrong? Just keeping very in touch with yourself. And it sounds so like fluffy.
But it's not. So how do you get, you know how you said you make quiet yourself and you listen? How do you do that? How do you quiet yourself?
Honestly,
do you meditate?
I don't meditate. I actually just started doing yoga teacher training.
Okay,
so
nice.
In my free time, I just like have been starting to meditate. But I think it just comes from keeping like a lot of time for yourself. And because I only focus on the few people now, I'm not on social media that much. I'm not like, and by on it, I mean, it's not consuming me. Yeah. So when I look at someone else's, I mean, I went to weddings right after I broke my own off, and I was fine with it because I'm like, this is your moment. Like, I'm happy for you.
Was that hard? Did you think it was going to be hard to go to a wedding after yours?
I thought it would be hard.
Yeah.
It wasn't, because I was like, wow, this is so right for you, and it was so wrong for me, and it almost made me feel better.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that made me feel off was I was like, how did everyone else figure it out? Like, these girls are like 24 or 25. Like, why me? Like, I had that whole like, woe is me moment.
Yeah.
But I just got over that. And like, yeah, it's sometimes, I still sometimes struggle with like listening to my inner voice, but at least I know when the sirens are going off.
Yes.
Because I've been there.
Those are so important.
Those are important.
Yes.
And the opposite, like I kind of know when something just, I think you have to be in the muck to know when something feels wrong, to know when something feels right.
And you also know, I'm not going to put up with it. And
Yes.
once you get out of it, you're like, you know what? If I can get out of that, I can get out of anything.
That's completely like what changed. I was like, well, if I could do that, then like nothing else seems, you know, I didn't feel like I had no longer had to like save face for anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was like embarrassed by my own life choices, and I stopped like making decisions. I didn't even know I was doing it, but I stopped making decisions thinking like, how will this land on people? And it was more like, is this something that I envision myself doing?
Yes.
But I think, yeah, I think it's hard. It's an ongoing journey, like the forgiving yourself and listening to yourself. Like, I say this with the hindsight of so many years and how it all played out. But in those moments, like, I needed the people around me to remind me to do that. So
and you also have to be perceptive, and you also have to be kind to yourself, and you have to be gentle with yourself, and you know, you just have to accept yourself.
Yeah.
And say, you know what, I made a decision, and now good or bad, I'm going to live with this decision.
Right.
Because I made
Yeah.
This journey is what I've created.
And there's like a little bit of like a lack of permanence in things too, right? Like in that stage, I told my mom that I was forever going to be the girl who called off her engagement. Could you imagine? Like, there's so many problems in the world, and here's like Nisha Balwani sitting in Edison, New Jersey, and like beautiful family being like, I'm forever going to be the girl who called off her engagement. It's like, how dramatic is that? Like, no, you won't. Like,
and nobody cares. And people are going to forget because they have their own problems, right? Like, but you don't think that the universe revolves. And most of the time we think the universe revolves around us.
Totally.
And it doesn't do anything else.
Totally.
And
yeah, I will say though that for as like progressive and modern as I feel like my parents are, like society definitely has a way of putting like a black mark on somebody who was like previously engaged, broke it off, whatever. And like, you know this as well as I do, but like, and I do feel like I wish that could go away. I wish that, you know, if we realize that we're making the wrong decision, then it should be okay to reverse it. Even in career paths, like you start med school, maybe you don't like it. Okay, so
what?
At least you tried.
Right,
like,
exactly. Versus, oh, you're a failure.
Right.
You didn't do it.
Right.
And like, how could that be? And you're going to scar us. And
it's applicable to like many other scenarios where people, I think the most disservice you could do to your family and to your life is to just do things because someone told you.
Yeah.
And I think that's like where it comes from, listening to yourself.
Yeah.
Is quieting the voices around you too. People telling you to do this and do that.
But it's society. I don't think society is going to change you. You can't change the people around you. You can only change yourself, and you can only do this for you.
Yes.
You can't worry about what everybody's going to say. The aunties are going to talk, and they are just going to say stuff, and you have to accept it.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. There are women out there who are just going to say stuff, and it is what it is.
And you have to meet that with like a, I don't really care what you're saying. And I, you know, instead of being like rude, just, I would always just be like, it's okay. Cause you weren't there.
But you know what? The best way to answer that is through getting out of it and being successful. And that brings us to what Nisha did. After the engagement, Nisha answered the aunties and told them what Nisha Balwani is.
Yep.
So Nisha, what did you do after this whole engagement was called off?
Yeah, so after the engagement was called off, I had always wanted to go to business school. And that was something I thought I wasn't going to be able to do just in the timeline of like, I have to get married and I have to do all this stuff. And so I spoke with my parents. I was like, I really want to go back to school. I studied for the GMAT. I went to Columbia. I just graduated in May.
Yes. So you didn't just pick a normal school. She went to Columbia. So she is an overachiever. That's just that, and that's how it is, right? You have to expect the best for you.
Right. And then you have to get it for yourself. I still wasn't very good at that. Like I remember telling my brother I wasn't going to apply to Columbia, and he was like, I don't understand, like you want to go to school in the city, why don't you? And I'm like, well, it's an Ivy, like I'm not going to apply there. And he's like, what? And so I only applied because he told me to just send my application to them.
Your anchor.
My anchor. Again, 8 people. Like just choose 8 people.
Yeah.
And then tell them and then listen to them. And then don't listen to anybody else.
Yes.
But then, so, and it was another moment where I realized that eventually I was like, I want to start my own company. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I didn't know when, but I realized that by inserting myself into Columbia, I'd also have another 8 people maybe who would be like my business people or who would just get me on like that level. And it was like this, like, it was like a thirst to go back to school. I didn't know why, but I felt like I think there was a little bit of confidence that came from it too. Like I needed something of my own after like the broken engagement to like
something call yourself.
Hold, and I needed it to just be mine. Like I studied, I got in, and then I flourished there, and like that was mine. And this is very recent. Like I just graduated, so this journey, like, you know, for everyone else, I always tell my mom this, that it was one moment, like the day Nisha called her engagement off, and I was like, for me, it was every day thereafter. Like, what am I building for myself after that?
Yep, I've done this, now what?
Yeah. And
I've done this, now what?
And it took a long time to realize that I shouldn't just do things like because I felt like I had to. Like I was like, no, like do something that you really feel like you want to. And they were so supportive, and I'm so thankful.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then Rent Alia was born.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about Rent Alia.
This is another great, like, listen to yourself moment. So when I went to business school, and I always get this question, like, how did you know you wanted to go? Did you want to start a company? And I always say, like, eventually I wanted to start my own company at some point. But I always thought I would go to school, maybe be like chief of staff for another startup, just like learn the ropes. And then I ended up meeting my co-founder in business school. And it was one of those moments where you're really listening to yourself. And the two of us made a stellar team. We started working on Rent Alia, which is a rental platform for South Asian attire and accessories like this necklace.
Yes.
I was
gonna
shameless promotion.
I was gonna ask you, well, is this from Rent Alia? But
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
And we started working on it like school project. The two of us were going to present it to the class. And there was just something so right. Like everything I was talking about previously in this interview, like the like in your gut, we were like, we're onto something. Through a school project, we were able to like make orders and everything was coming together. We won a couple pitches. And we're like, you know what? Let's do this. Like, I think it was like risky, but also not, because we both felt it.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on it full time since May. And it's been.
So tell me how Rent Alia works.
Yeah. So it's basically like Rent the Runway,
Okay.
but for South Asian clothes. So you can go online and you find the dress that you want for the party that you need to go to. And you rent it all online. It comes to you with a prepaid label. So you just wear it and return it. And you
don't have to dry clean it.
You don't have to dry clean it. You don't have to do any of the annoying stuff that comes with like Indian clothes. So when you send it back to us, we clean it, we store it, and then, you know, you rent for another wedding. And the best part is the aunties don't talk because you wear something different every time. Otherwise, they're like, did you know she wore that?
I know. I can't believe she's wearing the same outfit.
That again. So yeah. So, and I think it's so interesting, like that I started this company, because in so many ways it's like a traditional product, which is like, you know, a sari or a lehenga, but a modern like take on it, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to come to your door, and I know a lot of people like my mom's age are like, oh, like we're not going to rent, but we're like dying for it. Like my 400 square foot apartment in Manhattan cannot store any Indian outfits, you know? So it's an interesting way of bridging, kind of moving society along, being like, we still want to be tied to our heritage.
Yeah.
But we're seeing new ways of doing that.
That's right. And that's part of the journey of everything, right? Yeah. That's how it is. You have to say, take the old, combine it with the new, and then make it Nisha.
Totally.
That's how it is.
That's how it is.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to reach or get in touch with you for Rent Alia, so what do they do? Where do they go for it?
So it's www.rentaliaco.com. And
it's Alia with Y-A.
A-L-Y-A. Yeah, actually, Alia means to rise or to ascend. So our whole concept is around like female empowerment. And that's why I love Soul Talks, because it's really about like the untold story behind us.
What an amazing story. Nisha, your story is amazing, and what you can do for young girls, because a lot of the times girls just can't talk to people. And the pearls you have given throughout your conversation has been amazing. And I keep saying amazing because that's the word that comes to my mind. But if you had to synopsize, right, 3 things for women, for younger women, older women, I think your lessons are actually for anybody.
Yeah.
But give me those 3, again, on point.
Totally. 3 things. Live for yourself, be intentional, and give value to the people who are giving value to you.
Wow. And with that, we're going to end this wonderful segment of Soul Talks with Alka. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you every week. And if you like this show, please like it, subscribe it, and share. Thank you.